Welcome to my channel, The World of Science Fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
Acid rain hissed against the titanium plating of his repair exoskeleton. Ryan Cole moved through the twisted graveyard of metal that was once a flagship cruiser. Here on Keanos 3, even the air tried to kill you. His job was simple. Find surviving power cells, ignore everything else. But the weak intermittent signal on his scanner didn't resemble a standard cell. It came from beneath a collapsed plate in the captain's bridge. With a strained whine of servo motors, his exoskeleton lifted the plate. Below in the pilot's chair, she sat, the warrior queen, the sole survivor. Her midnight blue armor was cracked, powerless. From the fissure on her chest plate, directly above her heart, oozed a viscous, oily substance that dimly pulsed with blue light in rhythm with her barely perceptible breathing. Energy, but alive, unstable. The rain intensified, corroding the metal around them. The pulsation became chaotic. Ryan Cole knew what an energy leak looked like. He'd seen them turn ships to dust. He had to stop it. The Queen's eyes snapped open when he lifted her from the command chair. Silver irises expanding and contracting like camera apertures focused on his face behind the scratched visor of his helmet. Her lips moved, but no sound emerged. The translator in his helmet picked up nothing, dead like most of his equipment. He carried her to the only shelter, an overturned section of the hull where the rain couldn't reach them. Laying her on the cold floor, he assessed the damage with clinical precision. His HUD ran a rapid diagnostic scan of her armor, displaying a schematic overlay of the damage points. The fissure was classified as a Gamma-class micro-breach. Standard procedure for such damage was clear. A breach was a breach. He retrieved his plasma cutter, adjusting the settings methodically. Power output at 12.3%, beam focus at maximum precision, duration set for microbursts to prevent thermal damage to surrounding material. The tool's tip glowed white-hot as he brought it toward the crack. As the cutter approached the obsidian fluid, something unexpected happened. The cobalt threads within pulsed violently, their glow intensifying to a painful brightness. A low, resonant hum emanated from the breach. Not a sound, but a vibration he felt through his exoskeleton, through his bones. Her hand shot out like a snake. Cold but incredibly strong fingers closed around his wrist with impossible force. Strength that should have been beyond the capabilities of powered-down armor. The Queen's eyes, liquid silver, were open and burning with cold fury. "Not there," she hissed in broken common language, her voice strained and desperate. "Never touch it." She drew a ragged breath, the effort clearly taxing her. "This, not metal. This, me." Ryan Cole froze, the plasma cutter still humming in his immobilized hand. The revelation hit him like a physical blow. In her gaze, he wasn't a savior, but a looter, a grave desecrator about to blow them both up. He saw only damage that needed fixing. She saw a savage who didn't understand he was trying to repair her heart. The energy pulsation on her chest intensified, became jagged. The armor around the crack began to glow brighter, responding to her distress. The scraping of claws on metal made them both turn. The energy leak had done its work. From the darkness appeared three creatures. Local scavengers, six-legged beings with chitinous shells, attracted by the smell of unstable energy. They slowly surrounded their temporary shelter. The exoskeleton gave Ryan Cole a chance. He could break through, leaving her behind. It was the logical choice. Instead, he silently retreated deeper into the hull. Zayla, the Queen, watched him, contempt in her eyes. A coward. But he wasn't running away. He tore the power block from his forearm, exposed the wires, and connected it to an emergency terminal. He wasn't a warrior. He was a technician. When the first creature stuck its head through the gap, Ryan Cole closed the contacts. A powerful electromagnetic pulse hit the creatures, causing their nervous systems to momentarily fail. They recoiled with shrieks. He'd sacrificed half of his exoskeleton's charge, his only protection, to create a temporary barrier. He didn't say a word. He simply acted. In Zayla's gaze, contempt gave way to confusion. "You," she began, her translator struggling with human phonetics. "Not predator." "No," Ryan replied, watching the barrier flicker. "Salvage tech. Here for power cells." He gestured to her chest. "That's not a power cell." Zayla's silver eyes narrowed. "Core. Ship's core. My core now." The revelation hung in the silence between them. Ryan had heard rumors about the Australis, the warrior clan that had found a way to integrate with their ship's systems, but he dismissed it as propaganda, corporate fear-mongering to justify military budgets. The silvery fluid leaking from her armor wasn't just fuel, it was something more profound, a technological symbiosis he couldn't begin to comprehend. "The ship core is part of you?" he asked, studying the pulsing crack with new understanding. What he'd seen as a simple breach was something far more intimate, a wound that threatened not just her armor, but her existence. "I am Core. Core is me," Zayla replied, her hand protectively covering the damaged section. "Without Core, Clan has no path among stars." A violent tremor shook the wreckage around them. One of the scavengers, larger than the others, slammed its armored body against their makeshift shelter. The electromagnetic barrier sparked and weakened. They had minutes, maybe less. "Can you walk?" Ryan asked, checking his exoskeleton's power levels. 43%. Not enough to carry her and defend them both if the creatures returned in greater numbers. Zayla's face contorted with effort. Her armor made a grinding noise as servos attempted to engage, then failed. "Systems damaged. Mobility limited." Before Ryan could respond, a new sound reached them. The distant yet unmistakable hum of ship engines. Not the erratic whine of a scavenger vessel, but the controlled, powerful thrum of a military-grade cruiser. His scanner, rebooting after the EMP, picked up the signature before visual confirmation. "Ship approaching," he reported, checking the readout. "Signature, Marauder class. Armament, heavy." He looked at Zayla, whose silver eyes had narrowed at the news. "Friends of yours?" "No friends," she replied grimly. "Rival clan. Hunters." They retreated deeper into the debris to the ship's bridge. It was safer here, the structure still largely intact despite the catastrophic landing. Through the broken visor of the main view screen, Ryan Cole saw the other ship landing on the horizon. Sleek, predatory, bearing the emblem of a rival clan. These weren't rescuers. Ryan studied the crack in Zayla's armor with new eyes. What he had initially seen as a mechanical problem to be solved with his plasma cutter was now something else entirely. A wound in a living system, as intimate as a punctured lung or a torn artery. The technology suddenly seemed less alien, more human. "They come for Core," whispered Zayla, pressing her hand to the pulsating crack. "My Core?" "Why?" Ryan asked, already suspecting the answer. "What makes it so valuable?" Zayla's silver eyes met his. "Core is connector. Mind to ship. Thought becomes action. No delays. Perfect unity." She gestured to the dead bridge around them. "One pilot, one mind, controls entire vessel." The implications struck Ryan immediately. Neural interface technology that's sophisticated would be worth more than most planets' annual GDP. No wonder rival clans were hunting her. Soon, magnetic boots were clanking against the hull of their wrecked ship. A strike team. They weren't shooting indiscriminately. They moved methodically, using scanners that could detect the energy signature of her core. "We need to fortify this position," Ryan said, scanning the bridge. His tactical training was minimal, but he understood structural integrity. "That entrance is our weakest point, and that ventilation shaft could provide a secondary access." Zayla followed his gaze, her warrior's mind immediately grasping his strategy. "Need to block both." Together, they worked in grim silence. Ryan identified the structural vulnerabilities of the bridge, pointing out where support beams had been compromised and where debris could be leveraged most effectively. Zayla, drawing on her armor's remaining power reserves, moved pieces of wreckage that Ryan's exoskeleton struggled with, positioning them to create choke points at each potential entrance. It was their first true collaboration, wordless, efficient, each recognizing the other's expertise. When a particularly heavy section of bulkhead needed positioning, Ryan calculated the leverage point while Zayla provided the strength. Their movements synchronized as if they'd trained together for years. "They have cutters," Zayla warned as they finished barricading the main entrance. "We'll burn through." Eventually, Ryan nodded, listening to the methodical clanking, drawing closer. "But we'll make them work for it." He paused, looking at her directly. "And hopefully buy enough time to figure out how to stabilize your core." The look Zayla gave him contained something new. Not quite trust, but perhaps the first acknowledgement that their fates were now intertwined. The barricades were merely a delay. Ryan Cole knew it. So did she. "Your people?" Zayla asked, her silver eyes fixed on him. Ryan shook his head. "Corporate salvagers. Different company." He checked his scanner. 6 life signs approaching. Heavily armed, based on their heat signatures. "They won't care that I'm human." "You could surrender," she suggested, her voice hollow. "Tell them you capture me. Share, reward." The thought had already crossed Ryan's mind. He'd be set for life. The technology in her armor alone would be worth a fortune. But the way she said it, not as a plea or accusation, but as a cold statement of fact, made his stomach turn. "Not my style," he muttered, searching the debris for anything useful. His hand closed around a broken communication array. If he could repurpose it, a sudden high-pitched whine filled the air. Zayla's armor was vibrating, the crack widening. The blue light pulsed erratically, and her face contorted in pain. "What's happening?" Ryan demanded, abandoning his search. "Core destabilizing," she gasped. "Damage. Too severe." Ryan had just reinforced the final barricade when it happened. The crack on Zayla's armor flashed with blinding intensity, the cobalt blue suddenly erupting into a painful white blue that seared his retinas even through his helmet's auto-dimming features. The queen's body arched in agony, a primal scream tearing from her throat. Not the controlled voice of a warrior, but the raw sound of something being torn apart from within. "What's happening?" Ryan demanded, rushing to her side as she collapsed to her knees. Her armor began to fracture in multiple places, hairline cracks spreading outward from the central wound like a spiderweb. The obsidian fluid seeped through these new breaches, now pulsing erratically with conflicting rhythms. Each pulse sent waves of visible energy cascading across her form. "Core destabilizing," she gasped between spasms of pain. "Critical, cascade, imminent." Ryan's HUD flashed with urgent warnings. The energy readings from her core were off the charts, fluctuating wildly between patterns his systems couldn't even classify. But worse, his own diagnostics showed a troubling cascade effect in his exoskeleton. Warning: power core instability, detected exoskeleton integrity. 62% power level, 15% estimated. Operational time, 27 minutes. The shrapnel that had torn through his side during their earlier escape had done more damage than he'd realized. The microfractures in his own power system were beginning to mirror the instabilities in Zayla's core. Her destabilization was affecting his equipment through some kind of resonance effect. Diagnostics on her helmet, barely functioning, blinked red. Critical condition. The core was destabilizing from stress and external influences. It was about to explode. The strike team behind the door fell silent, their scanners probably showing the same thing. Now they were waiting for the inevitable detonation that would solve their retrieval problem by turning the core into scattered atoms. Zayla looked at Ryan Cole. In her silver eyes there was no longer any fury or contempt, only despair. She knew she was dying. His exoskeleton was failing, his own power systems compromised by the same shrapnel that had wounded his side. Every movement sent jolts of pain through his ribs. She slowly, with visible effort, raised her hand. Her finger pointed not at enemies, not at weapons. It pointed at the massive power block on his chest, the heart of his exoskeleton. Then she pointed at her chest, at the pulsating core. Ryan stared at his HUD readouts. Warning: disconnection of primary power core will result in complete system lockdown mobility. Systems will fail life support, will terminate, proceed. Y/N. Outside, the methodical work of plasma cutters continued. His scanner showed 6 hostile signatures converging on their position. 3 minutes, maybe less, before they breached the final barrier. He looked at Zayla, watching her body convulse with each chaotic pulse of the core. The blue-white light bathed her face in stark relief, highlighting the pain etched into her features. Despite everything, there was dignity in how she faced her end. No begging, no false promises, just the silent question in her silver eyes. His gloved fingers hovered over his chest plate. One simple command could release the safety locks. He looked at her for a long moment. Then, without a word, he tore the protective panel from his chest, exposing the humming power block. Wait, he said, examining the connections with clinical detachment. This isn't a simple transfer. Your system is different. Zayla's breath came in ragged gasps. Core interface, specialized. She weakly gestured to the sides of her breastplate. Release, catches. Ryan found the nearly invisible seams and pressed. The breastplate separated slightly, revealing more of the complex machinery beneath. What he saw made his engineer's mind reel. It wasn't just technology. It was a blend of machinery and something organic, pulsing with its own life. Crystalline structures threaded through with what looked like veins, circuitry that seemed to have grown rather than been manufactured. The core itself was a sphere of obsidian liquid suspended in a lattice of light, now pulsing chaotically in patterns that hurt to look at directly. This wasn't a repair job. This was surgery. A loud bang echoed through the chamber. The strike team had breached the outer door. One more barrier, and they'd be in. No time, Zayla whispered, her silver eyes locked with his. Core will detonate. Kill us. Kill them. Ryan understood the implication. A detonating core would be a clean end, preferable to what awaited them if captured. But something in him rebelled against the thought. Let me try something, he said, removing his helmet to better see the delicate circuitry. The acidic air burned his lungs, but he ignored it. He needed precision now. With trembling hands, partly from fear, partly from the exoskeleton's failing hydraulics, he disconnected 4 specific power conduits from his chest unit. The exoskeleton immediately became heavier, its support systems beginning to fail. This won't be a full integration, he explained, working quickly. Just enough to stabilize your core until we can find a better solution. Zayla watched him with a mixture of doubt and something else. Hope, perhaps. You risk everything. Story of my life, Ryan muttered, carefully connecting the first conduit to her exposed core system. The moment the connection was made, he felt it. A cold rush as energy began flowing out of him, through the cable, into her system. The blue energy in his power cell's amber glow met, sparked, then harmonized into a steady green pulse. So far, so good. The second connection was more difficult. Her system rejected it initially, causing a painful feedback surge through his exoskeleton. Ryan bit back a scream as electricity arced through his body, finding pathways through his skin, his nerves, his blood. Stop, Zayla insisted. We'll kill you. Almost. Got it, Ryan grunted, forcing the connection. This time it held. The chaotic pulsing of her core slowed, stabilized. The third and fourth connections went more smoothly, as if her system was adapting to his. The final barrier groaned as plasma cutters sliced through. Seconds remained before the strike team would breach the command center. With the last connection complete, Ryan felt his exoskeleton power down around him. The servos locked in place, turning the once mobile suit into a rigid prison. The HUD flickered and died, plunging him into darkness. The only sensation remaining was the cold press of metal against his skin and a strange, rhythmic vibration pulsing through the cables. The echo of her core, now stabilized and synchronized with his own heartbeat. Complete darkness. Absolute silence. Nothing but the sensation of being entombed in metal. The final barrier collapsed with a thunderous crash, a vibration through the floor plates, movement, the sound of boots entering the chamber, muffled through his dead helmet. Corporate Salvage Team Delta, surrender the... Silence again. Then a violent shock transmitted through the cables connecting him to Zayla. A pulse of energy so strong it made his muscles spasm involuntarily. Darkness. The vibration of rapid movement through the floor. A burst of sound. Plasma weapons discharging. The smell of ozone seeping through his helmet's dead filters. Darkness. Stillness. The sensation of being completely forgotten in the chaos outside his metal coffin. A scream, abruptly cut short. The vibration of a body hitting the floor nearby. The core is not for taking. Zayla's voice transformed. Resonant, powerful, cold. No longer the wounded warrior, but something else entirely. Another violent shock through the cables. Ryan's heart skipped a beat, synchronized with whatever violent action she had just performed. Darkness. The sounds of combat. Short, brutal, efficient. Not a battle, but an execution. The vibration of multiple bodies falling. The smell of something burning. a strange, harmonic resonance coming through the cables, as if her core was singing with power. Then silence again. Longer this time. The sensation of being alone, abandoned in the void. Movement approaching. A vibration that he recognized somehow as Zayla's footsteps, different from before, more fluid, more certain. They regroup. More will come. Her voice, barely audible through his helmet, possessed a clarity and strength that hadn't been there before. "Can you get us out?" Ryan asked, his voice echoing strangely in the confined space of his now coffin-like exoskeleton. Silence. Assessment. He could feel her studying his prison, calculating probabilities, measuring outcomes. "Remove armor. Must leave." "I can't," Ryan explained, the reality of his situation fully dawning on him. "Without power, the release mechanisms don't work. I'm stuck." Silence, then impact. Pain blossoming across his chest as metal struck metal. The sound of armor cracking. Second impact. The shriek of stressed alloys giving way. A sliver of light penetrating the darkness as his chest plate split along emergency seams. Third impact. More light. The sensation of cold air on his face as his helmet was torn away. Ryan blinked, his eyes adjusting to see Zayla standing over him, her silver eyes studying his face. His actual face, unobscured by technology for the first time. He felt naked, vulnerable in his thin insulation suit, while she towered above him in her now gleaming armor. Radiating power and strength, her midnight blue armor had transformed. The cracks had sealed completely, leaving only faint luminescent traces like decorative circuits patterning the surface. The cobalt energy that had been leaking now flowed in controlled channels throughout her suit, pulsing with ordered precision. Her silver eyes glowed with the same energy, pupils contracting and expanding with mechanical precision as she assessed him. He staggered to his feet, unused to moving without the exoskeleton's support. The cables connecting him to Zayla's armor pulled taut, a physical manifestation of their new relationship. They were bound together now, his life force feeding directly into her systems. "We're still linked," he noted, examining the connections now embedded in a small device Zayla had torn from his chest plate. "Your core needs continuous power." "Yes," she confirmed, her voice now perfectly modulated, each syllable precisely formed. Her eyes regarded him with neither gratitude nor contempt, but with the detached assessment of an engineer examining a component. "You are my battery now." The statement contained no emotion, no malice, no triumph, no regret. It was a simple technical observation, as if she were merely identifying the function of a circuit in a diagram. A cold, factual verdict on what he had become. A strange, bitter humor in the situation made Ryan laugh despite everything. Great. From salvage tech to portable charger. Career advancement. The ground shook beneath them. Outside, the salvage ship was repositioning, likely preparing for a more direct approach. Through the broken viewports, Ryan saw mechanized units deploying. Combat drones designed for urban pacification. "They're not taking chances anymore," he said grimly. "We need to move." Zayla nodded, scanning the command center, her gaze fixed on a maintenance shaft. "There. Emergency exit." Together they moved toward the shaft, Ryan stumbling on unsteady legs, Zayla supporting him despite the cables that kept them tethered. The shaft was narrow, barely wide enough for them to crawl through single file. This presented a problem with their connection. "You first," Zayla decided, carefully arranging the cables. "I follow." The shaft was dark and claustrophobic, smelling of burnt electronics and the acrid tang of Keanos 3's atmosphere seeping through micro-fractures in the hull. Ryan crawled awkwardly, constantly aware of the tug from the cables behind him. Each pull reminded him of their bizarre symbiosis, his power source keeping her core stable, her combat capabilities keeping them both alive. They emerged in a lower section of the ship, near what had once been the engineering bay. Most of it was exposed to the elements. The hull peeled back like the skin of a fruit. Acid rain poured through the opening, creating a curtain of hissing droplets between them and potential escape. "We can't go through that," Ryan said, eyeing the rain. "It'll eat through my suit in seconds." Without his exoskeleton's protection, the acid would burn straight to his skin. Zayla surveyed the area, her silver eyes reflecting the blue emergency lights that still functioned in patches. "Alternative route?" Ryan consulted his mental map of standard cruiser layouts. Maybe through the cargo hold. If it's intact, it should connect to the... A deafening explosion cut him off. The entire ship shuddered, debris raining down around them. The salvage team had decided on a more direct approach. No time, Zayla declared. Before Ryan could protest, she tore a section of plating from the wall and bent it into a crude shield. This protects you. Partially. That's not very reassuring, Ryan muttered, but took the makeshift shield. Another explosion, closer this time, made the decision for them. Lead the way. Zayla stepped into the curtain of acid rain, her armor sizzling but holding. Ryan followed, hunched beneath the shield, feeling the occasional droplet land on his insulation suit. Each contact brought a sharp pain as the acid began dissolving the material. They emerged onto the planetscape of Keanos 3, a hellish terrain of jagged metal and sharp stone. The crashed ship had carved a deep furrow through the landscape, creating a valley of debris stretching toward the horizon. The acid rain fell in sheets, obscuring visibility beyond a few hundred meters. "Where now?" Ryan shouted over the hiss of rain. Zayla pointed toward a dark formation in the distance. Caves, natural formation, shelter. They moved as quickly as Ryan's unprotected state would allow, keeping to the shadow of the wrecked ship as long as possible. The makeshift shield was disintegrating in his hands, the acid eating through the metal faster than anticipated. Behind them, combat drones launched from the salvage ship, their searchlights cutting through the rain. They moved in precise patterns, methodically scanning the wreckage. They're tracking the core's energy signature, Ryan realized. They'll find us no matter where we hide. Zayla's expression darkened. Not if signature masked. She glanced at the cables connecting them. Need to modify connection. While running for our lives through acid rain, great plan. Despite everything, a flicker of what might have been amusement crossed Zayla's face. You prefer surrender? Ryan sighed. Point taken. What do you need me to do? They reached a section of debris that offered momentary shelter from both the rain and the searching drones. Zayla knelt, examining the connection device between them. Need to create interference pattern, she explained, her fingers working with surprising delicacy for their size. Scramble signature. Ryan watched her work, impressed despite himself. You're pretty good with tech for a warrior queen. Queen is leader, she corrected, not looking up. Leader must understand all aspects of clan. Technology, combat, diplomacy. A pause. Survival. A drone passed overhead, its searchlight sweeping perilously close. They pressed themselves against the debris, holding their breath until it moved on. Almost complete, Zayla whispered, making a final adjustment. The green pulse of their connected systems flickered, then stabilized at a lower intensity. Signature now diffuse, harder to track. Ryan felt the difference immediately. The power drain on him was more profound, a steady pull at his core that made his limbs feel heavy. It's taking more from me now. Necessary, Zayla said, her tone softening slightly. Will not drain you completely. Comforting, Ryan muttered, but gestured forward. Let's keep moving before that drone circles back. They continued toward the cave formation, moving from one piece of shelter to the next. The salvage team had deployed ground units now, armored figures moving methodically through the wreckage. Their superior protection allowed them to ignore the acid rain that forced Ryan and Zayla to proceed so cautiously. The caves loomed closer, a network of tunnels carved into a rocky outcropping. Natural formations, as Zayla had said, but there was something odd about their symmetry. These aren't natural, are they? Ryan asked as they finally reached the cave entrance. Zayla hesitated. Not entirely. Keanos natives carved them before extinction. Extinction? Ryan echoed, suddenly uneasy. Planet changing, atmosphere becoming acidic. Natives built these as refuge. She looked around the empty cave. Failed. The implication hung in the air between them. Keanos 3 had once been inhabitable. Something had changed it, turned it into the hellscape it was now. Ryan wondered if that something had been natural or engineered. The cave provided relief from the acid rain, but little else. The rocky floor was uneven, the air stale and thin. Ryan's lungs burned with each breath, the corrosive atmosphere having taken its toll during their exposure. We need a plan, he said, leaning against the cave wall. They're not going to give up. That core of yours is too valuable. Zayla touched the now stable crack in her armor. Core is life of ship, life of clan, many applications. Enough to justify a retrieval team with military-grade equipment, Ryan noted. What exactly does it do, besides keeping you alive? Zayla's silver eyes studied him for a long moment, as if weighing how much to reveal. Core is connector. Allows pilot to become one with ship. Feel ship. Control with thought. Ryan whistled low. Neural interface technology? That's decades beyond anything I've seen. More than interface, Zayla corrected. Symbiosis, ship becomes extension of pilot. Pilot becomes heart of ship. The implications were staggering. With technology like that, a single pilot could operate a vessel that would normally require a crew of dozens. The military applications alone would be worth inciting interstellar conflict. And now you're the only one left, Ryan said quietly. The last of your clan. Zayla's expression remained stoic, but something in her eyes betrayed a profound loss. Last of command line. Others scattered, hunted. A sound at the cave entrance interrupted them, the unmistakable whir of a drone's propulsion system. They retreated deeper into the tunnel network, moving by the dim light of Zayla's partially restored armor. The tunnels branched and intersected in complex patterns, suggesting the original inhabitants had created an extensive underground community. Some passages showed signs of having been living quarters, with alcoves carved into the walls and primitive pictographs etched into the stone. You seem to know these caves, Ryan observed as Zayla navigated without hesitation. Studied Kianos. Before mission. Her voice was clipped, focused. Clan always prepares. What was your mission here? Ryan asked. There's nothing on this rock but acid and salvage opportunities. Zayla didn't answer immediately. They had reached a larger chamber, circular in shape, with a domed ceiling that rose at least 20 meters above them. In the center of the room stood what appeared to be an altar of some kind, a raised platform surrounded by stone pillars. This is what you came for, Ryan realized. Whatever this is. Zayla approached the altar reverently. Kiano's Heartstone, legend says, grants control of planet's core. Ryan followed, skeptical but curious. You're telling me your clan came to this hellhole for a myth? A legend? Not myth, Zayla insisted, running her hand over the stone surface. Symbols began to glow where she touched, responding to some property in her armor. Science forgotten as magic. Technology misremembered as miracle. The entire chamber began to hum with energy. The symbols on the altar spread to the floor, then the walls, creating intricate patterns of light that bathed the room in an eerie blue glow. What did you do? Ryan demanded, suddenly fearful. Activated interface, Zayla explained, her silver eyes reflecting the blue light. Core recognizes Kiano's technology. Compatible. The humming intensified. From the altar rose a holographic display, crude by modern standards but functional. It showed what appeared to be a schematic of the planet, with a pulsing red center. Kianos 3 was terraformed, Zayla said, studying the display. Atmosphere processors buried deep, malfunctioned centuries ago. Created acid environment. Ryan stared at the display in growing comprehension. And your clan came to fix it? Why would warriors care about restoring a dead planet? Strategic position, Zayla admitted. Kianos sits at crossroads of 3 trade routes. Valuable, if habitable. Before Ryan could respond, a new sound echoed through the tunnels, the measured tread of armored boots. The salvage team had found the caves. They're coming, Ryan warned, looking for exits. The chamber had multiple tunnels leading from it, but without knowing the layout, choosing the wrong one could trap them. Zayla's attention remained fixed on the altar. Need more time. Can restart atmospheric processors. Reverse damage. We don't have more time, Ryan insisted, grabbing her arm. The connection cables between them pulled taut. We need to move. Zayla finally looked away from the altar, her expression torn between duty and survival. Cannot abandon mission. Last chance for clan. Ryan understood dedication to a cause. He'd seen enough corporate zealots sacrifice themselves for company objectives. But this felt different. Zayla wasn't just following orders. She was fighting for her people's future. How long do you need? He asked. To initiate restart sequence. 3 minutes. The footsteps were growing louder. I'll buy you 2, Ryan decided, looking around for anything he could use as a weapon. His eyes fell on a loose stone pillar, toppled from its original position. It wasn't much, but it might create a distraction. Zayla returned to the altar, her hands moving across the symbols with increasing confidence. The holographic display shifted, showing different layers of the planet's infrastructure. Ryan dragged the stone pillar to one of the tunnel entrances, positioning it precariously so that a slight touch would send it crashing down. The noise would draw attention, hopefully away from the main chamber. He was about to trigger the trap when Zayla called out, "Ryan, need you." He hurried back to the altar. "What is it?" "Power insufficient," she explained, frustration evident in her voice. "Core energy enough to access system, not enough to initiate restart." Ryan looked at the cables connecting them, understanding what she was asking. "You need more power." "From me." Zayla nodded grimly. "All of it." The implications were clear. His power source was already being drained to stabilize her core. Diverting more, potentially all, to the restart sequence would leave nothing for him. In his weakened state, with the corrosive atmosphere already affecting his lungs, it could be fatal. "Will there be enough left for you?" "For your core?" he asked. "Unknown," Zayla admitted. "Risk to both." The footsteps were almost upon them now. Any moment, the salvage team would enter the chamber. If they were captured, the core would be extracted, Zayla would die, and Ryan would face whatever fate awaited those who interfered with corporate interests. Neither of them would leave Keanos 3 alive. Ryan made his decision. Do it. Zayla's silver eyes held his for a moment, an unspoken acknowledgement of his sacrifice. Then she turned back to the altar, placing her hands on 2 specific symbols. "Place hands here." Ryan positioned his hands on the indicated symbols. Immediately, he felt a pull, stronger than before, a tide drawing the energy from his body. His vision blurred, his heart raced, then slowed. The holographic display flared brighter, the red core of the planet turning green, then blue. "Sequence. Initiating," Zayla reported, her voice seeming to come from very far away. "Atmospheric processors reactivating." Ryan could barely hear her now. His consciousness was fading, the drain too severe for his body to withstand. As darkness crept into the edges of his vision, he saw the salvage team burst into the chamber, weapons raised. Zayla moved to defend him, her movements sluggish as her core diverted power to the planetary system. The leader of the salvage team leveled his weapon at her, a smile of triumph visible beneath his tactical mask. "The core!" Finally, he noticed Ryan slumped by the altar. "Your human pet doesn't look so good. Should have left him behind." Zayla stood protectively in front of Ryan's unconscious form. "He is not pet. He is ally." The leader laughed. "Doesn't matter what he is. He'll be dead soon, and you'll be dissected in a corporate lab." He raised his hand, signaling his team to advance. They moved cautiously, aware of Zayla's combat capabilities even in her weakened state. What none of them noticed was the altar, now pulsing with energy. The holographic display had expanded, showing not just the planet's core, but the entire atmospheric system. Green lights cascaded through the network, indicating reactivation. The chamber shuddered. Dust fell from the ceiling as the entire cave network vibrated with sudden energy. The salvage team leader looked up in alarm. "What did you do?" he demanded. Zayla's silver eyes gleamed with fierce satisfaction. "Fulfilled mission." The vibration intensified. From deep below came a rumble, like massive machinery awakening after centuries of dormancy. The floor cracked, fissures spreading outward from the altar. "Fall back," the leader ordered, but it was too late. The chamber floor collapsed, revealing a vast underground complex beneath. The atmospheric processors, massive machines now humming with renewed power. Most of the salvage team disappeared into the chasm. Their screams cut short as ancient defense systems activated, identifying them as intruders. Zayla grabbed Ryan's unconscious form, leaping to a stable section of floor near one of the tunnel exits. The connection cables between them had detached during the chaos, but his chest still rose and fell with shallow breaths. He was alive, barely. Outside the caves, the atmosphere of Keanos 3 was already changing. The acid rain had stopped, the corrosive elements being neutralized by the reactivated processors. For the first time in centuries, clean air began circulating through the planet's upper atmosphere. Zayla carried Ryan through the tunnels, seeking an exit. Her armor, now functioning at minimal capacity without his power source, was heavy and cumbersome. But she pressed on, driven by a debt she could never fully repay. They emerged from the caves to a transformed landscape. The acid rain had given way to a light mist. The salvage ship, caught in the sudden atmospheric shift, had initiated emergency protocols and retreated to orbit. In the distance, the crashed remains of her clan's cruiser still scarred the horizon, but now it stood against a clearing sky rather than perpetual acidic haze. Zayla found shelter in the shadow of a rock formation, gently laying Ryan down. His skin was pale, his breathing labored. Without immediate medical attention, he wouldn't survive long. Her core, partially stabilized by the energy he had given, pulsed weakly in her chest. It would sustain her for now, but not indefinitely. They were both living on borrowed time. In the sky above, a new ship appeared, smaller than the salvage vessel, bearing no corporate insignia. A scout ship responding to the sudden atmospheric changes on a planet long written off as uninhabitable. Opportunity called quickly in this sector. Zayla stood, her armor reflecting the newfound sunlight breaking through Keanos 3's clouds. She raised her arms, sending a signal pulse from her armor, the universal distress code used by all spacefaring races. The scout ship altered course, descending toward their position. It could mean rescue or further danger, but it was their only chance. Ryan stirred, his eyes opening slightly. "Did it work?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Yes," Zayla confirmed, kneeling beside him. "Planet healing. Mission complete." A faint smile touched his lips. "Good team." Zayla placed her hand on his chest, feeling his weakened heartbeat. In the formal cadence of her clan's ritual language, she spoke words he couldn't understand, but whose meaning transcended translation. "Your heart sustained mine. My strength will now protect yours. We are bound by choice, not circumstance." The scout ship landed nearby, its boarding ramp extending. Zayla lifted Ryan once more, carrying him toward what she hoped was salvation rather than further peril. Whatever awaited them, they would face it as they had faced everything since that moment in the crashed cruiser. Together. In the report of the aggressor clan, it is noted, "Object lost, core integrated with unidentified human technician.